Good morning, everyone. Wait for everybody to migrate their way over. I don't trust anyone standing behind me. Especially you guys. Yeah, seriously. All right, good morning, everyone, on this cold, crisp morning here in Rocky Mount. My name is Paul Carney. I'm the Chief Human Resource Officer for Carter Bank. Glad to have all of you here. Thank you so much. Just going to open with a few comments and stuff and then hand it off to a few speakers this morning. What I'd like to do is, and we're celebrating our 50th year, I'd like to bring up a few comments of what 1974 looked like. For those of us that remember 1974, I was 8 years old at that time, yes. So gasoline had gone
Bluetooth
up.
Disconnected. Bluetooth connected.
Sorry. Oh, somebody's phone must be connecting to the speaker. Gas had gone up to 50 cents a gallon because of the embargo the year before. Remember the OPEC? Yeah. And those of us had to wait in lines with our parents. Some of you might have made in line as a parent. Then bread was like 28 cents a loaf for a loaf of bread. A stamp, U.S. postal stamp. How much people know what it was back in 74? 10 cents. Yep. Penny candy, remember penny candy? Now, if I had a shiny dime in my hand, I wasn't buying a stamp. I was buying 10 pieces of candy, right? So 1974 seems like a long time ago. It was 50 years ago. And we're going to hear a little bit more about that today, what that means for Carter Bank, of course. But what I'd like to do is say thank you for allocating your time to be here with us today to celebrate this, because that's the one thing each of us has. 24 hours every day, 7 days a week. No one gets more, no one gets less. And the fact that you chose to allocate some of that time today to be with us means something. So thank you for doing that. All right, at this point, I am going to turn over the microphone to our Chief Executive Officer, Liz Van Dyke.
Thank you, Paul. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here on a real special day for us. I guess the celestial stars aligned because it was exactly 50 years ago on Friday the 13th, 1974, when Worth opened this office. And I remember Sid Mason, dear Sid, said to me, I told Worth, you don't open a branch on Friday the 13th. And what Worth said was, watch me. And 50 years later, it's turned out okay, I think. Before we get into some other remarks, I do want to introduce a few special guests with us today. Worth Carter III and his wife Susan, Tyler Carter, one of the family, and Ernest. Where's Ernest? Ernest Carter here. Thank you all for being here. Delegate Eric Phillips, dear to our heart, we're going to have a presentation of a resolution that Delegate Phillips introduced to the House. Mark Moore with the town, and Daniels with him as well. Carly Foster with Franklin County. Where's Carly? Back there hiding, Carly. Thank you. Our chairman, Jim Haskins. Where's Jim?
He's behind the
We have a couple of other directors with us. Elizabeth Walsh is here, and Kevin Bloomfield. Kevin. There he is. Thank you. We have some of our executive team with us today. Jane Ann Davis is here. Phyllis Karabatakis is here. Loran Adams. Tammy Buttry. Paul Carney, who you just met. Richard Owen. Charlie Sword. Where's Charlie? Crystal Parnell. Crystal's the director of marketing, and all these pretty new colors are a result of all the efforts that she put into this rebranding effort. So thank you to your team. Also want to make a special introduction to Diane Hall. Diane was the first employee of Carter Bank and Trust. Wow. And I'll tell you a little bit about God's providence. We sat beside one another at Worth's funeral and got to talking, and we realized that Diane was the first employee Worth hired, and I was the last. So kind of unique there. So Diane, thank you for being here. Some special recognition also to the fine contractors that really rallied. Olivia said this was the fastest remodel in the history of remodeling. I guess it's kind of like those shows, you know, you have the the workover, what do they call it, home makeover, whatever. And I could just see Crystal in here saying, "You got 2 more days." Anyway, Dale Harrison and Sons Painting for the great paint job here. Does anybody hear from them? Premier Building Services. I see some of those folks in the back. The beautiful lighting and some other things they did. And Newcomb Flooring. I saw some Newcomb folks here too. So thank you all for all the work. It looks, I think you'll agree, it looks great here. It really does. And our facilities team, Olivia and her team, have done just a terrific job. They're in the midst of doing a lot of remodeling. As you've noticed, we've got some new colors and some new schemes and some things, and I think it really looks nice. And they're in the throes of doing that across our footprint. You know, we opened with 1 office, now we've got 65. So keeping up with facilities is a task. But we're really excited for you to be here for this milestone today. It's, as I said, 50 years ago to the day, they cut the ribbon. Tyler showed me the flyer, actually, from that day. And it said the grand opening was from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. So there was a party that day. Not unlike Worth to go late at night, I can tell you. So we're very grateful, those of us that work for this company, for the legacy that Worth created 50 years ago. Our commitment, and I know the commitment of all of our associates, is to continue that legacy, to commit ourselves to the values that Worth started, that is, taking care of the communities, because I think Worth believed that if you took care of a community, the community would take care of you. If you take care of the associates, they'll take care of the customers. So I think hopefully we've created and continued that legacy, and we're grateful to that legacy that Worth created. This is a big year for us. As you see, we've got a lot of branding, rebranding going on. We've got a lot of exciting things happen. Tuesday, we announced a branch purchase. We're purchasing 2 branches from First Reliance Bank, good friends of ours in South Carolina, in Winston-Salem and Mooresville. I do believe, Phyllis, you correct me if I'm wrong, that's the first time the bank has expanded other than organically.
That's true.
So that was a big announcement for us. It's an exciting step. It gives us presence in Winston-Salem and expands our presence in Mooresville, North Carolina. So we're happy. So the colors have changed, but the company's the same. You know, people don't bank with a sign. They don't bank with a color. They don't bank with a building. They bank with people. And our people are what separate us from all of our competition, we believe. That's our secret sauce. We go to investor conferences, you know, we're a public company, and we talk to investors, and they say, "What is your secret sauce?" I say, it's our people. We're big enough that we can offer the diverse products and services, but we're small enough to know you. And you're not a number, you're a person. And that really is key to what we do. And that's really the legacy that Worth created. He had a memory like I have never seen before. He could remember people's names, where you know, what project he worked on. I would go to him and I would say, "Worth, I'm looking at a loan was made 15 years ago, and let me tell you, oh, I know it was secured by this, it was done by this." I mean, he could rattle it off. But anyway, so knowing people is what separates us from everybody else. So thank you again for coming today. Very special day for us, and I hope you stick around and enjoy the refreshments. But I'm going to turn it back over to Paul, and we'll continue our ceremony here.
Thank you, Litz. It's funny, we're standing in this lobby of one of our branches, the first branch, and he mentioned the community, and one of the things we should do is also thank these poor folks because we invaded their branch for this ceremony this morning. Meanwhile, they got customers coming in, so please give a round for the workers. Thank you, guys. I appreciate you. All right, next up, I believe we have the Assistant Town Manager. Correct? Yep. Mark Moore, the Assistant Town Manager, will say a few words.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here. Mark Moore, I'm the Assistant Town Manager for the town of Rocky Mount. I'll have some brief comments and then I'll pass it along. The town is proud to have a partner of 50 years in Carter Bank, woven into the fabric of the town of Rocky Mount. We're thankful for the partnership that we have with them. Carter Bank was instrumental in the Harvester Performance Center 10 to 12 years ago. That's right next door. That was the revitalization point of our downtown. So Mr. Carter was a big supporter and was a big part of that project. And so the town is very grateful and forever thankful to Mr. Carter and Carter Bank for that. I also want to take a minute to thank the executive team for hosting this event here. Of all your branches that you have, you chose to host this event in the town of Rocky Mount. So we're always appreciative of that, and we're thankful for you thinking of the town of Rocky Mount when you thought of this event. Lastly, Carter Bank and Trust and Mr. Carter are big supporters of Community Partnership for Revitalization, CPR as it's known in town. It's a big nonprofit that the town has staff that sit on it as well. Donna Ray and others sit on that. They put on the Come Home to Franklin County Christmas, Court Days, and other events in town. And so Carter's a big supporter of that. And Carter is also a supporter of numerous community events throughout the town. So we're thankful for Carter's partnership. We're thankful for Carter Bank here in town, in the heart of our downtown. And so on behalf of town council, town staff, we're thankful to have Carter here for 50 years, and we look forward to another great 50 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. And as Mark mentioned, the community aspects of what Carter Bank does, we've got someone who, Beverly Lyle, back here. I'm going to allow her to walk in, as she was being polite and not walking in on us. But Beverly is one of the people who is instrumental from Carter Bank in helping that community, keeping the community going. So thank you. I wanted to get Beverly in here. All right, next I'm going to introduce Delegate Eric Phillips, who's got a presentation for our bank.
Thanks, sir. Thank you. So just real quickly, I'm not sure about 1974, but this is what 1976 looks like. So you can tell it's been a long time that you guys have been open. 50 years. I mean, when you think about that, how many homes has Carter Bank helped local families purchase to raise their children in? How many businesses has Carter Bank helped finance to get started or to expand? And how many jobs has that created for families who might be our neighbors, frankly? The last 50 years, this bank, this organization has had an immeasurable impact on this region and frankly on the Commonwealth of Virginia. And we're grateful for that. And it's truly a community bank. You know, I have served and continue to serve as chairman of the Boys and Girls Club, on the Chamber of Commerce, all kinds of boards and committees. And without fail, there's always a member of the Carter Bank family serving on those boards alongside of me. So we appreciate Carter Bank, all that it means to this area, all that it means to all the many people who bank with you, all the help that you guys give. Always been known as such a great community partner. And with that, I'll ask my assistant Denise to come forward. So what we have here is a commending resolution from the Virginia House of Delegates. The way this works is it goes to the floor, just like a bill would go. It's voted on and passed by the House of Delegates. And of course, it was passed unanimously to commend Carter Bank on their 50 years of service to our area. So, and it was also sponsored by myself as the chief patron, Delegate Will Davis, who regrets he could not be here. Will regaled me with stories of him as a young man, along with his father and grandfather, clearing lots to build new Carter Bank branches. I believe his grandfather was a board member in the early days. And so he sends his regards today. Also Delegate Danny Marshall and Delegate Ren Williams. Carter Bank and Trust, a community bank headquartered in Martinsville, celebrates its 50th anniversary this year in 2024. Established by founder Worth Carter Jr. in 1974 as First National Bank with a single branch in Rocky Mount, Carter Bank and Trust has grown to occupy 52 branches, along with corporate offices throughout the Commonwealth. Today, Carter Bank and Trust serves in the communities of Charlottesville, Danville, Chatham in Pennsylvania County, Northern Virginia, Roanoke, the New River Valley, South Boston, Halifax, Galax, Floyd, Hillsville, Martinsville, and Henry County, Rocky Mount, Independence, Culpeper, Stewart, and Lynchburg. With more than 500 Virginia residents in its employ and $4.6 billion in assets, Carter Bank and Trust is a full-service bank providing commercial and business mortgage and personal retail banking services. Carter Bank and Trust fosters the success and well-being of those in its service area by offering a variety of financial and educational opportunities. Carter Bank and Trust makes an impact in the communities it serves through generous philanthropic support, donating nearly $1 million to 375 nonprofit organizations throughout the Commonwealth of Virginia in the last 3 years alone. Thank you. Associates at Carter Bank and Trust have embodied the spirit of charity and community mindedness that permeates the institution, volunteering more than 7,200 hours for the benefit of local organizations. Carter Bank and Trust has upheld the highest virtues of the banking profession over the past half century and has helped to ensure the prosperity of Virginia residents and businesses. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Virginia House of Delegates that Carter Bank and Trust hereby be commended on the occasion of its 50th anniversary, and be it resolved further that the Clerk of the House of Delegates prepare a copy of this resolution for presentation to Litz Van Dyke, Chief Executive Officer of Carter Bank and Trust, as an expression of the House of Delegates' admiration for the bank's history and its contributions to the Commonwealth. And here's the 50 more.
Let's get our chairman up here, Jim. Where's Jim?
Chairman, he's coming.
There you go. Jim's wearing a fine Hampton-Sydney tie. I want y'all to take note of that.
Had many children to go there. I feel invested in Hampton-Sydney.
Got it. Good.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you for all you did.
Appreciate it
Appreciate
very
you.
much.
Thank you. Mr. Jim.
Me. Excuse me, Eric. Hey, just a few notes. Can everybody hear me? I really don't like the microphone, but usually in courtrooms I can speak up enough. We've heard a lot and pretty well throughout the whole state of Virginia, and as Eric has just said, the General Assembly of Virginia recognizes what Mr. Carter accomplished for our state, and of course now parts of North Carolina. But I'd like to just dwell a few minutes on my relationship with him and the type of man he was and what he really created in the banking world that's today still talked about, highly respected. Of course, as we know, we're here today for the great 50th anniversary of the founding of Mr. Carter's first bank here in, obviously, Rocky Mount, December the 13th, and really Friday the 13th, 1974. Now, from 1974, the first bank, up until 2006, when all 10 of the independent banks that Mr. Carter created were merged into Carter Bank and Trust, I think just a moment to reflect on that accomplishment. He created these 10 independent banks in, of course, Martinsville, Henry County, Richmond, Galax, Roanoke, throughout the state. And each bank stood on its own. And he was, Mr. Carter, and people that know him, some people would say he loved to control everything. And he probably did. And then I say that, I don't say that lightly, and we'll carry on here. I've been on his board of directors as a member since 1981. Now that's obviously a long time, and please don't try to start computing my age. But from 1981, my law firm represented the bank in many endeavors, and Mr. Carter and I got to know each other well. We tried federal jury cases back when Judge Jim Turk was the basic chief judge of the Roanoke federal courts. Cases all the way to the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals, to the Supreme Court of Virginia. And back to Litz's comment about Mr. Carter, his memory, but not only his memory was the best that I've ever seen. And he would sit beside me in court, and my law partner, sometimes Jim Young. And not too often, but if he saw the need, he would bend over. Jim, you got to object to this, etc. And this witness is not telling the truth. And he was pretty much always right. Now, as I said, he created these 10 independent banks, and at one point, my recollection is correct, Phyllis is here and Jane Ann, of course, but we had approximately well over 100 branches. As Litz said, we've cut them down to about 65, probably a little bit more now with some recent work that Mr. Van Dyke has done. But a tremendous organization. He was, I'll say again, he was the CEO of each of the 10 banks. He was the chairman of the board of directors of each of the 10 banks. And Mr. Carter died on April the 7th, 2017, and I was with him several days before he died in Winston-Salem. He was being treated in the cancer center at Wake Forest University Baptist Medical Center there. And at that point, in that condition, his mind was active, and he was still the CEO of Carter Bank and Trust and chairman of our board of directors. So let's go back kind of to the beginning right quick. And I realize I'm probably taking a little too long, but some of this I think is really interesting to the people. He was a man that came in our area. He was a Federal Reserve bank examiner for many years, highly respected. He went to work in Martinsville for Piedmont Trust Bank under Mr. Charlie Brune. And eventually, for lack of a better phrase, I don't want to call any names, but it got a little tight and close in Piedmont for him. So he left Piedmont Trust Bank and went to the Fieldale community and operated a little convenience store, a little grocery store. And along the way, this, again, as Litz said, how this man's mind worked. He went to the store and ran it for several years before he founded the first bank here in Rocky Mount in 1974 on December 13th. And during this period, as I've said, from 1974 until 2006, when the 10 independent banks were actually merged into Carter Bank and Trust, one bank, obviously. Along the way there, over the years, I used to ask him, I said, why are we continually creating a new bank here and a new bank there? Independent banks that had to be audited by state, federal examiners, all sorts of regulatory items, etc. And he said, well, Jim said, back when I was running this little store, up in Fieldale, I finally discovered that if I had a beautiful pie or a cake to sell, that I made more money if I cut it up in slices rather than sell a whole pie or a whole cake. And I said, what's that got to do with creating these 10 independent? He said, don't you see kind of the comparison? That at that point, he was really thinking that this was going to be the most profitable way for his shareholders, as well as the bank, to actually realize profit, realize dividends, and but as regulations go, as we all know, how we're highly regulated everywhere now, including the banking industry. As it came close to 2006, he had finally decided he was going to take these 10 banks and merge them into one, Carter Bank and Trust. And the type of man he was again, he, in addition to all the fine things that have been said, one of the most brilliant people that I've ever associated with in the banking world, the law world, federal juries. This man was at home and could provide constructive comments and advice anywhere he was, under any conditions. And he came one day to me, and I'm sure he talked to other people that he respected, and said, what do you think we ought to name this new bank? Said, some people have said that it ought to have my name in it, Carter Bank and Trust. Said, do you think that, is too egotistical, too presumptuous? And I said, Worth, believe me, my friend, that absolutely not. No right-thinking person could, come to any other conclusion that only your name should be there. It's important to remember again, back to the type of man he was, that in the 10 independent banks that were created from 74 up to 2006, his name was never in any of them. The bank here, Patriot Bank in Richmond, Blue Ridge Bank up in the Galax area. We can go on and on. So anyway, the bank merged, but back kind of at the beginning again. When he left Piedmont Trust Bank, and went to the little store he operated in Fieldale, he had a purpose at that point. And Phyllis and I have, and I want to refresh my memory, and as well with Jane Ann, that at that point, and Phyllis went to work right out of college, Miss Kavratakis, I'm sure everybody knows her well. She's a fixture just as one of Mr. Carter's chief lieutenants, and now is a great advisor to Mr. Van Dyke. But Phyllis got out of college and went to apply for a job. And Mr. Carter, and one of my law partners and I were talking about this yesterday, he had huge maps of the state of Virginia, parts of North Carolina, that he wanted to put a new bank into, or a branch. And it was like Phyllis said, well, what kind of future am I going to have here, Mr. Carter? And he pulled the maps out, kind of like a general, showing you a battlefield, or how this is going to, this movement is going to progress and develop. Went through all of these areas with these maps, had them colored in different colors, And Phyllis, I think, was a little taken back. That's probably not the usual approach to a young graduate right out of college. Anyway, she went to work, and everything worked out. Now, as to the type of man, and I'm coming to the end of this. I could stand here and talk about my dear friend all day. And of course, as people here know, he was a dear friend of mine and a dear friend of many people here. And if Mr. Carter was your friend, he's probably the best friend that you ever had. But I don't know how to say this, and I say it with dialing all due respect, but he could have almost a one-track mind to the subject and whatever he was working on. As an example, Phyllis, Jane Ann, and I have talked this morning of simply closing the books every year like banks have to do. He would get his lieutenants together, Miss Jane Ann, Miss Phyllis, and you would sit down to close the books. And it would get to be 9, 10 o'clock at night, and you're still there working on the books because that's what you were supposed to do. And in all of this development of these 10 banks, which really from a banking perspective is just mind-boggling as to what he accomplished. He had no watch, never had a watch. Clock time was meaningless to him when you had something to do. Of course, he obviously had no cell phone, no these iPhones, nothing of that type. He would come to our office sometime and, 3 o'clock appointment in the afternoon. He's still there at 8, 9 o'clock at night. My wife's driving up in the parking lot at 8:30 or 9 o'clock thinking I've had a heart attack or somebody's, and it's Mr. Carter. So, and of course they got to be good friends too. But he, and I need to finish this up, Litz, I'm sorry. But the other thing, this is the type man he was. He was a man that started this in 1974. In fact, he started it knowing him in his own mind when he left Piedmont Trust Bank. He could see that was not going to work out for him. And a man with a purpose. And anyway, the other thing that I feel like I've got to mention as to where we are today, and Eric, the presentation to Mr. Van Dyke. Mr. Carter he got really sick in 2016. A year or so before that, he hired Mr. Van Dyke to be his successor. He would talk to me about it. What do you think? And et cetera. And Litz has turned out to be, I won't say another Mr. Carter, because everybody's got his own individual characteristics. But if my dear friend and the friend of people here was looking down on us today, as he probably is, knowing him, he would be proud of what Litz has accomplished and what Litz's plans are for the future, and that I made an excellent choice in picking Mr. Van Dyke to be my successor. So, thank you very much for listening to me. I'll say I probably rambled a lot, but this is the type man that created what we're standing in today, and it's unbelievable the things that he truly accomplished as an individual with a purpose. And I love this. Sometimes people think I live in another century, but a man with no watch, no iPhone, no walking around with it to see, where the bathroom is, but a true genius in his own right. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you so much, Jim. Appreciate you. So Jim Haskins, of course, our chairman of the board. Litz and Phyllis are internal representation. They're our internal board directors. We do have two other members of the board here I would like to point out. Elizabeth Lester Walsh in the back here, and Kevin Bloomfield in the back here are two other board members in case you want to talk with them. So at this point, we're going to wrap up for here, but we have a quick presentation that's going to be done. You can hear it being prepared over here. I promise I won't sing and dance while waiting for this. But. All right, I'll hand it over to Brooks so he can tell you what's going on.
So as we celebrate 50 years, there are a few people that we want to recognize that have also been instrumental in this whole rebrand project for the bank. So if Crystal Parnell could come up here, Susie Barta, and Litz Van Dyke. So in the beginning of October, we rebranded the bank. We rolled it out to our associates first, and then to our customers, and then to the public. As part of that public rollout, Monique Holland from the Martinsville Bulletin wrote a fantastic article celebrating Carter Bank and our rebrand and our history. And so we have that for you here in our new colors, and we have a copy of this for each of you. Crystal, our Chief Marketing and Communications Officer, has been instrumental in all of this. Susie was hugely part of this, and then she retired last week. So this is her last hurrah. And then obviously we couldn't do any of this without the blessing of Litz and the board. So on behalf of the bank, we would like to give each of you a copy of our newspaper article.
Thank you.
All right, and with that, folks, that is the end of this part of the celebration, but we do have a reception. We have our training center is the building just behind us here, and we do have a reception at the training center, so please join us there and celebrate, again, the 50 years and everything that's done. Thank you all for coming today.
Thank you.